Hello friends, welcome back to the session. So in this session, we will discuss about the client number, or we can say the SAP client. Now, what exactly the meaning of SAP client or the client number? So client number is a three-digit unique number which provide security to your data at the database level. Now, what's the meaning of this? Now let's assume you do have the two customer, they are sharing the common platform to secure the data. Now, of course, outside the database, if anyone, any entity, it is not possible to access the data. It means your data is secured for the outside entity. Now, within the database, the customers which they are working. Now, let's assume there are two customers. They are sharing the common platform. They are storing the data in the same platform. Now, what if I don't want to access each other's data? Now, if they are sharing the common platform means they can access each other's data because the database is common. Now, what if the customer one should not be able to access the customer two data in the same platform? The customer two should not be able to access the customer one data. Means I want to secure my data at the administrator level. So that solutions provided by the SAP in terms of client number. So that's the reason we discussed. The client number is a three-digit unique number which provide the security to your data at the database level. It will always contains three digits and it is between 000 to 999. It could be any number. That number is going to be decided by the basis consultant. When they are going to set up the system landscape. Actually, this client number will helpful for you to establish the system landscape. The system landscape, which we have already discussed in our previous sessions, the system landscape consists of three set of server: development, quality, and the production system. Now, you can ask me how these client number is going to be helpful for establishing the system landscape. That we will go in detail. So before that, I want to take you on some real-time example. Suppose as a customer, we go to the bank to deposit some amount to withdraw the amount. So if it is related to the amount, that is fine. But what if I want to secure some gold, some diamond related things in the banking? Of course, many people used to secure these things in the banking, and they used to get some locker system, you know, locker system. It doesn't mean that individual customer will get the individual lockers in a separate room. No, the room will be the common, but of course you do have the different locker for the individual customers. So here, that common room is nothing but your database. The locker systems are nothing but the client number. In the client, whatever your stuffs, your belonging you are going to be stored, that will be secured and that going to be accessed by yourself only. It is not. Of course, the locker is next to, you do have the two parallel lockers, but each locker will be having some unique passkey to open. So that is a customer specific. Even though both the locker in a same room, but the two customers which I am talking about, they cannot access each other's stuffs. In the same way, if you are working with the client number, even if you are sharing the common platform to store the data called database, they cannot be able to access each other's data. That security we can get at the administration level. Now, these client number contains three things. One with the application data. Second one is the customizing data, and the third one comes with the user master record. Now, what is the application data? The application data contains two things, one with the master data and the transaction data. These data we are going to be secured at the database level in the format of tables. Next, customizing data. So whenever we install the SAP system, the client is going to be configure and the customize the system as per their need, and whatever the settings we are going to maintain, of course those settings will be stored as a data in the format in the database in the format of tables. And the third one comes with the user master record. Like whenever you get onboarded in any projects, like they are going to be create a set of username and the password for you to access their system. Now, whenever actually this job is going to be done by the basis consultant, they used to create the username and the password for you, and they are going to assign the authorization and the roles to your username. Again, this is going to be managed by the basis consultant, and somewhere in the background, these information, these data will going to be stored in the respective database tables. So whenever we talk about the data, see data and the data objects. Whenever the things comes to the data, then the data should be client specific. whenever we talk about the data in SAP, the data should be client specific. So that is what we are discussing about the client number. So if I go with the definition wise, so here I can say client number, it is a 3-digit unique number which provide security to data, security to the data at database level. It means if there are two customers, they are sharing the common database, and if they want to secure the data, of course, they are using the common platform. Now, what if I want to secure the data with the administrator level? The customer one should not access the data of customer two, and the customer two should not be able to access the data of customer one. That security we can achieve by using the client number. Next, so the main advantage of this client number is to establish the system landscape and providing the security. Now, the client number contains, it contains the first application data. The application data is nothing but what? The master data and the transaction data. Of course, these data we are going to be stored in the database in the format of tables. Next, customizing data. Like whenever we install the SAP software into the client premises, they are going to configure and customize the system as per their need. Now the settings which they are maintaining, those will be stored in the format of data inside the database, and that is the format will be the table. Next comes with user master record. So whenever you get onboarded, the basis consultant is going to create a username and the password for you, and they are going to assign some authorization. Authorization is for what? To access the applications in the SAP platform. That authorization and assigning the roles is a part of basis they are going to maintain. So every client number contains these three set of things. Now, the main advantage of using the client number or working with the client number is to secure the data. This is the first thing. And second thing is to establish the system landscape. So here I can see the main advantage is to work with the client number. So first thing is what? Security. You can say data security. At administrator level, means database level, at database level. Second, it will helpful for you to establish, or I can say set up the system landscape. As we know, the system landscape contains three set of server. Now you can ask me how this client number is going to be helpful for establishing the system landscape. So as we know, when we are working with the system landscape, we do have the set of three server: development, then quality, then production. We have already discussed this in detail in our previous sessions. Now, whenever we install the SAP software, that SAP system software contains the three set of client by default clients which we can find. Those are the part of standard clients. So here I can say SAP contains standard client, I can say. So whenever we install the SAP software in the client premises, so that SAP software comes with three client. One with the 000 client. This client we can call as a master client, or we can call it as a golden client also. The second one comes with 001. It is just a copy of master client, and the third one is we can say early watch. This client is a part of early watch. Now you can ask me what is the meaning of these 000, 001 and the 066. As we discussed, SAP, the client number, it is a 3-digit unique number, and that unique number could be anything between 000 to 999. But while working as a consultant in the SAP system, you never come across with the 000. Actually, this number which I'm specifying, this is more related to the basis only. Now, they used to work with these clients when they are going to be initially when they are setting the, as I discussed with this, system landscape, when they are establishing the system landscape. So when they are initially establishing the system landscape or setting the system landscape, they need to work with these three clients. As a abapper, we never work with these three clients. So 000 we can call as a master client or the golden client. These three clients you can find automatically whenever we install the SAP software. You can ask me what this 000 client consists of. So this 000 client consists of the simple organization structure, no, the I can say basic settings, we can say standard settings. By referring to those standard settings, you can create your own clients. So this 000 clients consist of the basic settings, the organization structure of your test client, test company, which includes the parameter of all the applications, the standard settings, then the configuration for the control of standard application. Like as I told that the basis is going to be control the username and the password, which they are going to create for newly onboarded, maybe the consultant, maybe the user. They can still control their, like suppose as a consultant or maybe as an end user, I'm accessing some application. So that like authorization is going to be provided by the basis. Like what kind of authorization they need to create, what kind of roles they need to create, what kind of standard settings we do have in SAP. So that we will get to know by using the 000. So this 000 consists on some sample configuration. I can say sample. By referring to those only, they will create a new client. So, so 000, which consists of the organizational structure of some test companies, then it also consists of somewhat the standard settings, and then it contains the configuration for the control of standard applications as well. Then comes with your 001 client. I'm just giving you the overview. Actually, this we have nothing to do with. Actually, this is a job of the basis consultant. The 001 client, again, it is a copy of 000. Even it also contains of the organization structure, the standard organization structure of a test company. Suppose if you are setting, what is the meaning of the standard organization of test company? Suppose if you are setting one plant or any company, then what organization suit or the organization structure which I need to follow? That sample test, the sample format provided by the SAP in the format of 000 or 001. Actually, 001 is again copy of 000. Now, by referring to this, the basis will create a new client, and that client will be used while setting the system landscape. Next, the third comes with 066, and this 066 we can call as a early watch. Now, what is the meaning of this early watch? So, this early watch, SAP early watch, we can say the SAP early watch is a alert for the diagnosis services. Now, what is the meaning of this? See, so these like early watch is going to monitor your SAP or non-SAP system on the SAP solution manager. This early watch, the diagnosis services is going to, what we can say, they're going to monitor your SAP system or maybe non-SAP system on the SAP solution manager. And based on the analysis, they will get to know the performance of your system and the current system load, we can say. Then we can say the average response time. Is it your system giving the response time as per the what we decided, or what should be there, either giving the proper response time or not, or we can say the database administrators, we can say. So this related information is going to be given by the early watch. But that is somewhat in detail. Actually, we have nothing to do with this. Is a job of the basis consultant. But here, what is the role of client number? Now, if you look at the client number, as I told you that data and the data object, when the things comes to the data, then it should always be the client dependent. Client dependent. So if I go with the types of table based on the client number, then it's a part of client dependent and the client independent. So here I can say with client dependent, client independent. So in SAP, the data should be client dependent. As I discussed, the client number contains application data, customizing data, and the data related to the user master data or user master record, we can say. So all these information should be the client specific. It means it should be stored in particular client with full of security. And this client number will helpful for you to establish the system landscape. Then how it going to be helpful for you to establish the system landscape? See, we discussed three-tier architecture. As we know, SAP is an three-tier architecture which contains presentation server, application server, and the database server. Even we discussed, we do have multiple presentation, we do have multiple application, we do have in the sense we can have presentation. Of course, we do have multiple, but application can be one also. It can be multiple also. It is based on the business which you are maintaining. If you do have the heavy data, you do have the heavy customers. If you want to process the heavy data, then of course you need to work with the multiple application server. For example, if you go with your laptop or the mobile phone, the laptop which we purchase for the personal use, that is with the basic minimal configuration. The same laptop which you are working or using at the corporate level, that comes with some different set of features. Advanced, we can say. The processor is very high, the memory is also very more, because that is something related to the real time and we need to process some multiple applications, heavy applications which we need to process. For that, we need some high level configured system. Same way, if you're having the huge base customers, if you want to process large base customer data, then sometimes we need the multiple applications to balance the load. But it doesn't mean that it's not a mandatory you should have the multiple application, but it can be. You do have the multiple application, maybe one also, or maybe can be multiple application, but database always will be one, right? So if I want to show you the coordination, the architecture level, how the R3 and the system landscapes are functioning. And as we discussed, client number is going to helpful for you to establish the system landscape. So the horizontally, I can say it is a system landscape. And vertically, it is your SAP three-tier architecture. It means it is your database server. These are your application server. It can be one, it can be multiple. So application server 1, application server 2, application server 3. It doesn't mean that you do have 3, 2, 1. It can be any number or it can have common also. The outer which I have shown, this is a common application server also. And this is a part of your presentation server. The presentation, as I told you that, we can have the multiple. And that presentation is nothing but itself your system landscape, which contains the development server, then quality, or we can say testing server. Then we do have production server. As I discussed initially, suppose I do have two customers. Now instead of two, I'm taking a three customers. Now these three customers are sharing the common platform to store the data. Now outside this database, no one can access your data. It means your data is secured for the outside entity. But within the database, the three customers which they are working, actually these three are the independent. They are handling the independent business. Now what I wanted to do is, I don't want these customer, any one of these customers should not access each other's data. Customer 1 data, he should not be able to access customer 2 and customer 3 data. If it is not able to see the data, if it is not visible, then of course it is not possible to manage also, maintain also, right? So same wise, customer 2 data should not be accessible to the rest of the two customer, and the customer data, customer 3 data should not be accessible to first two. Then how we are going to achieve? By using the client number. So here the development, quality and the production time being you can consider as these three are the customer. Now the customer 1 of course processing his data. The customer 1 of course he is processing his data to the database. In the backend the database is common. Even the customer 2 is also processing his data, but in the backend the database again it's a common. And even customer 3 is also processing his data, and in the backend the database is common, right? Now outside this database no one can access the data, that is for sure. But these three customer again they can able to access each other's because in the backend the database is common, right? Now what I wanted to do is, now each other should not be able to access their each other's data. Means I want to secure the data at the administration level. Then SAP come up with the locker system in the banks which we used to have. That is a part of your client number. So whenever they set up the system landscape, specifically by the basis consultant, they are going to name it. Always how to differentiate the either it's a development or quality or the productive system by using some 3-digit unique number, unique ID we can say, that is a part of system ID. That can be number also, that can be alpha number numeric also, that is only alphabets also. Now let's assume, so HED is my development system, HED is my development, HEQ is my quality system, and HEP is my production system. Now, whenever they set up this system, they always going to provide the 3-digit unique number, locker system, unique identification, and that can be any number, and that is always except 000, 001, and 066. It can be any number except 000, 001, and the 066. And 001 is of course a copy of 000. And whenever they create a new client, they will always copy of the 001. If they are going to create the new client, they always create the based on the 001 because that contains some sample test configuration. And by referring to this, they are going to create the new client. So let's assume the HD system contains somewhat 100. They have like given the number as 100. Now it is something like 120 and this is somewhat 200. Now suppose before the client number, now whatever the data is being processed through the development system, that data is being stored in the same database. Now the data which is processing through the quality, again that data is going to be stored in a common same platform. And the data which is processing through the production system, again the same data is going to be stored in a same in common platform. It means the data which has been processed through the production system, it means that data can be accessible by the development. The same data can be accessible by the quality. That is what we are discussing, right? These three customer 1, 2, 3. If the customer 1 data, if he process the data, if it is storing in the common platform, the same data can be accessed by the customer 2. Same data can be accessed by the customer 3. If it is accessible by someone else also, he can manipulate your data. It means your data is not secured at the administrator level. To secure your data at the administrator level, then we are need to work with the client number, right? So in SAP, if it comes with the data, then data should be client dependent if you want to secure your data. If it is a client independent, your data is not secured. It can be accessed by anybody else and it can be manipulated by anybody or anyone else, I can say. So if you are taking the scenario, so development system, what is the need of this? What is the use of this development? It is only dedicatedly created or set up this system for only development related activity. So whenever we receive the requirement, we're supposed to develop the new program, new table, new screens. Then whatever the data we are processing through this development system, storing in the same cloud platform, the database server. Once we development has been finished, we are moving this object to the quality for more testing, right? Here we do have the separate testing consultant or we can say the functional itself going to test the developed object, even though through the quality, whatever the data is processing, it's going to be saved in a same common platform, that is a database. Now, once it is okay, it is going to be deployed in the production server. Here, end user, the client, he is using that applications to process the business data. And that data is very important. For example, let me take a scenario. Now you go to the bank to deposit some amount or to withdraw some amount. Let's assume I have deposited some amount, 10,000. Today I have deposited the 10,000 amount. Now this same data, if it is not secured at the administrator level, it means the same data can be accessed by the quality and the same data can be accessed to development also. Now in the development, I'm doing some changes, I'm doing some development, and I'm using that data for the testing purpose, and accidentally that data got deleted from from I'm running the report, and accidentally the data got deleted from my side. Then it ultimately lost to the business. Now next day morning again the customer is visiting the bank. I want to withdraw some 5,000 among the 10K. Now he's checking the system level. You don't have the data. The data got deleted. Then this is what the data is not secured. To make it secure, even though you're sharing the common platform, I want to secure the data. That's the reason we do have the locker system in the banking. If it is a common room, but you do have the different locker, you do have your own passkey. So I want to create some like partition in the database level, the locker in the database system. If I process the data through development, it should only be visible to the development. It should not be visible to the quality. It should not be visible to the productive. Same way, if I'm processing the data through quality, it should only be visible to the quality system. The data should not be visible to the development nor production. If you are processing the data through production system, it should not be visible to either development or quality. So this we are going to achieve by using the client number. So they are going to create same the locker wise. So this is for development, the locker, the quality, the locker, the production. And for the development, what is the locker number which you have provided? That is something like 100, 110, 200. It can be more than that also. It doesn't mean that each system contains a single client. No, you can have the multiple client also. Now within that, you do have the multiple compartment also. It's possible. It doesn't mean that each system contains a single client also. The client is only to secure the data. It should be visible only when if you logged in into the that particular system, then only you can see that data. But backend, your database is common, right? Now you can ask me which data should be called as client independent and which data should be called as client dependent or independent. So whenever like specifically it comes to the data, specifically it comes to the data, then data should be the client dependent. Now in what format we are going to store the data in the database? Table. So whenever we create the table, before we store the data inside the table, make sure that your data should be the client specific or client dependent. Now how to make it sure like my data is going to be client specific? How I'm going to make sure that my data is not going to be stored in all client without security? That we are going to achieve by using the client number. It means whenever we create the table, make sure that inside the table you do have one field called client number. If you register the field called client number in your table, then the table becomes client dependent. The meaning of the dependent means your data is stored in particular client with full of security. Suppose if you are not going to have that field as a client number, if you are not registered the field called client number in a table, the table will becomes the client independent. It means your data will be accessible, visible to all the clients inside the database. In the database, whatever the client has been registered, it will be visible to all the client. It means your data is not secured. So whenever we create a table, make sure that you should have the client number. Of course, in the table, we are going to store the data. When it comes to the data, it should be the client specific. And to make the data as a client specific, make sure that you do have the field as a client number in the table. Now, as we know, when we are creating the field, for the field we need to create the domain, and for that field we need to create the data element. So whenever we create the field, I can say the field name, the domain, and data element, for the client number is MANDT. So this is a field name, data element, and the domain for the client number. So you don't need to create the domain. You don't need to create the data element. It is already predefined by the SAP. So that is the advantages of the domain and the data element. It can be reused. So here, if the field called mandate is registered or created, I can say, in a table, such kinds of table we can call as a client dependent. If the field called mandate, nothing but the client number, is not registered, or I can say does not exist, then we are going to call as client independent. Not if it will happen if it is a client dependent or independent. So data is stored in a specific client, in the client which you are processing, with full of security. And if you are not going to have the mandate as a field inside the table, the data is not at all secured. It will be accessible to all the client in database. If it is accessible to all, then anybody can manipulate your data. So that should not be the case. Now, when it comes to the softwares which is provided by the SAP, which we are going to install in the SAP, like client premises. Now, every software, not only the SAP, if you go in the market, if you look at any softwares. Now, for example, the OS, suppose I'm using the laptop or the desktop, whatever may be, in that we do have the OS. And of course, most of the OS will be operating system is for the Microsoft, or some people will be having the MacBook, and there we do have the iOS. Now, suppose I'm using this OS. Now, any product or any software, unless it's a personal use, then it's free for you. That we can call as a demo and personal use. When it comes to the business, if you are using the same software for the business purpose, then it's a part of commercial use. Then you need to pay the rental to the respective organization. The same will be applicable to the SAP side. SAP also come up with the two softwares. One, the demo system, which will be used for the practice, personal use, and one with the licensed copy. The demo system which we are using, that we can call as a IDs. IDs. So IDs is a part of internet demonstration and evaluation system. This is a demo system provided by the SAP. This is a demo system. Now you can ask me how we are going to be sure that either it's a demo system or not. See, for all the demo system, the client number will be the 8 series. 8 series. It will start from 800 to 899. It means you will not find this 8 series in real time if you're working for any client, because the client which you are using the SAP software to run the business, those are the part of licensed one. And for the licensed systems, the client number always between, or I can say except 8 series. It can be like 110, 120, 200, 300, 400, any series except 800. And the second one is a licensed one. And it will always accept 800 series because they always provide the rental to the SAP for using their software. Now, if I look at the table which we created in a earlier session, so I have created one of the table. If I go with SC11, so this is one of the table which I have created. Now you can ask me the table which I have created, is it a client dependent or the independent? Of course, this is a client independent because I don't find any field in the name of client number. Now what will happen if you are having the table as a client independent? Suppose if I created this table in the development system, the data which I'm storing in this development system through development system, the data will be visible to the quality also, the same data will be visible to the production also. So it doesn't mean that if you created the table still exists in the development system, nothing will happen. But if you move that table to the quality from quality to production, if it is reached to your production, then if you are storing the data through development or maybe through quality or maybe through production, then anybody can access anybody's data. Means it is not secure. The production data can be accessed through development, the development data can be accessed through the quality of production. So your table which you have created, it is not at all secured. The data which you are going to store in this table will be accessible by all the client. If it is accessible, anybody can manipulate it. Now what if I want to secure my table? If I want to make it as a client specific, client dependent, then you should have the field as a client number in a table, and that should be always key field, and that should be always in first position. Now suppose if I create the mandate as a field, okay, so as I told you that for creating the field called client number and creating the domain for the client number field and creating the data element for the client number field, SAP has already provided the domain and the data element, and for that client number field we always specify the field as a mandate only. So that should be the key field, and that should not be null. That should not be null. User must enter, and I'm going to click on enter. So automatically you can see the CLNT, the data type, it will be always 3 digit, and the description. So here there are two things. One is that mandate field should be in the top and as a key field. And here second thing is what? Suppose in a table there can be having more than one key field. But key field always should be in a sequence in the first position, followed by the second, third, whatever the number of key fields you do have. It is not possible to create the key field with the gap. Now see, in the first position I have created the key field, I have the non-key field, and then I'm creating the key field. System will not allow you for this. The key field should always remains in the top. Now you can ask me, can we create the key field without, like, mandate as a without a key field? It is not recommendable. Okay. See, you are getting this message. Application table should be the client specific. This you always get if you are not registering the client number as a field in your table. And I told you that that should be in the first position and that should be the key field. Okay. If you are creating in the last position, nothing will happen. Of course, it is possible to activate, but it is not recommendable. It should be in the first position only. Now you can ask me how to add that field in the first position. Just place the cursor in your first position and select the insert row. You do have the insert and delete option. Click on insert row. So I'm creating the mandate. Enter. That's it. Just click on save in local object and activate. Now while activation, actually, basically we should not supposed to get the error. But of course, if we get the error, we need to read that error and we need to fix it accordingly. But here we get the error that structure change at the field level. It has nothing to do with the mandate key. So here the table which I have created, sometimes now in real time also whenever you are working with any table, if you are creating any Z table, sometimes you will get the error as structure change at the field level. That actually nothing to do with the mandate here. Actually, of course, I should get the error, that message, but that is nothing to do with the mandate field, but that is actually the issue will be with the key field. So exactly the issue is, so see, I'm going to activate this one. I got the message as error occurred at the activation. Error occurred when activation, please refer the log. So if it is a red, there is an error, and the error is structure change at the field level. Now what is the meaning of this? So let's assume the classroom, taking a scenario. In the classroom, the lecture is going on, and already, of course, the classroom is full, and there is some vacant space in the last bench, I can say, last bench. And in the first bench, actually, that is that four people can be sit in the one single bench, and already three people has been occupied the seat. First, so followed by second, followed by third. The last position is still empty, the vacant. Now, the person, suppose you are entering into the classroom, and instead of going to the last bench, you are willing to be sit in the first bench, and you do have the last fourth position. It is a vacant. You're open. You're free to sit at the last position. But instead of sitting at the last position, you wanted to be sit in the first position. Now, do you think that first three person will be allow you to be sit in the first position? No, because they come early, they came early and they're taken the seat. Actually, it will always work with the first and fifth order. It is not reserved for anyone. Anybody can sit. But who comes early, they can occupy the first position, followed by the you do have. Even the bus also, no one wants to sit in the last position. Now we do have the reservation concept, but still. But if you go with the local transportation, you don't have the reservation concept. But still don't want to sit in the last row. But here, in the first position, the person which he's sitting, maybe he's best person to you, best friend is to you, but still he will not allow you to sit in the first position. Sometimes your class teacher needs to take the role. He will intervene. And at least he will convince anyone of either he's going to convince your friends or the people who is already seated on the bench, or maybe he's going to convince you. He will ask you to sit at the last position, but you are not going to agree. No, I'm not angry. Maybe you're the topper of the batch. You're not agreeing to sit in the last. Of course, the teacher is going to take you a favor. I'm just taking the scenario. Don't take it otherwise. I'm just taking the scenario. In that situation, the teacher is going to convince the people he's already seated. They will ask you to please just skip to the next level. Does it mean the first position, the person who is sitting, he will just get up and go to the last? Not possible. Instead, what they can do, the third person will skip to the fourth position. The second will take the third position, and the first will take the second position. Means everyone's position is going to be changed by intervention by the your class teacher. Now the seat is vacant for you. Now you can sit in the first position. This is what happened. If that mandate field has been added, actually the issue with the key field, if it is a non-key field, then there won't be an issue with the key field. Now the index has been already reserved for all the fields. Now you are changed the position. Actually you have changed the position of first key field. The customer ID was in the first position, you have just skipped to the second position. There won't be an issue with the non-key field, the issue with the key field. Now, as per SAP standard process, whenever it is having the one-to-one relationship, it means now this table has been created in the presentation server. This is actually a template. The same copy will be created in the database. It means the two copy will be created, one with the presentation, one with the database. Now you have changed the position in the presentation. Actually, same thing needs to be applicable in the database server also. Now the extra field which you have added in the first position that you have done in the presentation, the same need to be adjust in the database. As I told you that the teacher need to be intervenes. By convincing them, you're going to make a arrangement for all the people. You're going to convince all four. The same thing need to be done at the data. Means the field, extra field which you added in the presentation, the same adjustment you need to do at the database level. Because whenever we create the table, it will create always two copy. One copy in the presentation, one copy in the database. You have added the field in the presentation, but you need to adjust the table in the database as well. The teacher who is taking a role To convince all you here that teacher is nothing but the database utility. SAP has provided the application called database utility. So the transaction code for the database utility is SE14. This is the database, the table which you want to adjust at the database level. Just click on edit option and just click on activate and adjust. You have done the changes in the presentation. You are going to, the same changes you are going to adjust at the database level. That adjusting will be done by using the SE14 database utility. See, not every time this you can come across with this issue. You can come across with this issue only with the two different scenario. One, the table is already active and you're changing the position of key field. First scenario. Even though if you're changing the position of the key field, you will not get the error, but you will get the error if you do have the entries in a table. So suppose now it is active. Now you won't get the message because you have adjusted. See, it got activated. Actually, only just by changing the key field position, you won't get an error. But I'm getting the error because I do have some set of entries in this table. And that entry, as I told you, that index is going to be changed. So that's the reason we need to make an adjustment. If suppose if you don't have the entries in this table, that of course you would not get this message, error message. So this is what the client number. So in SAP, the data should be the client specific. It should be managed by the client only. Now see, if I go with this table, I do have the entries in this table, but did I enter somewhere 800? No, that takes automatically by the system. See, suppose if I want to create the entries, actually creating the entries is a part of end user. We don't create the entries, but still if you want to create the entries, table content, create entries. See, this client number, it is taking the value automatically. No need to enter. That will take the system automatically. The current system, the current client which you have logged in, that number will be taken by the system automatically. And this is something like a locker. The data will be stored in that locker only. It not be visible to 80. If suppose you do have 810 and the 820. Now, if you are storing the data in respective client like 800, it will not be visible to 810 and the 820. Same with the vice versa. Now I'm storing the next customer. Something like city, the postal code, the street, the C. Now if I go back, table content, execute. Client number is going to be stored automatically. Now you can ask me how this 800 has been taken. See, as I told you that in the system landscape, you do have the three set of server. Now either you are logging in into the development or maybe the quality, maybe the production system. You are going to double click on that respective connection. You will get the logon page. Now, I think till now you have observed only username and the password which we are going to enter. Just before that, you do have the client number. For this development system, they have created the client number as 800. That will take automatically. But in the each system, you can have more than one client also. But it's up to you which client you want to log in and which data, like the data which you want to store in a respective client. And as I told you that SAP come up with the two, like every software come up with the two system, one with the demo and then one with the licensed one. So this is your demo system. That's the reason it's getting it as a IDES system, Internet Demonstration and the Evaluation System. That is the IDES. But there don't be any difference between the demo and the licensed copy. It will be remain same. Only the thing is that we'll get some extra features and you need to, it's a licensed version and you need to make a payment. That is it. So that's it. Thank you for the day and thank you for the session.